Alright, hello everyone. So for my army today, my overall idea was refining what I had in the last one. Since I'm very new at it, there's not going to be that many massive changes. There are some slight changes and refinement. So first off, I am not the Four-Armed Emperor. I am bringing a battalion of the Twisted Helix, which gives me +1 to move, and gives me transhuman physiology on all my models. Except, similar to the Orcs, it's a bootleg version, and it only works on 1s and 2s. But still. And so for starting off, we're going to bring on the Patriarch. Now he has, for his spells, he has Mass Hypnosis and Mind Control. He has Preternatural Speed as his Warlord trait, so he's basically going to be casting a lot of debuffs, and he's going to be going first and all stuff, and he has a Familiar. As well as he has a magic item that allows him to have +1 to all his casting. And, well, to his maledictions, which is his debuffs. And then we have the Magus here, who also has a Familiar, and she just basically has an item that will... she has Might from Beyond and Psychic Stimulus, so she has basically buffs. Because there's a CP stratagem that will allow me to give it to anybody outside of the range even. Costs a CP, but it's worth it. I don't remember the item I gave her, I'll find that later. And then a Primus, he's just there. Now, these characters are elites, but according to the way the game is built, for every HQ character that I bring in, I can bring in one elite character, and it's not going to be in the chart, so it's not going to take up space. We can start off with a Nexos for his CP regen and for marking enemies with Crossfire, and as well as I gave him a Cranial Inlay Relic, which allows me that on a 5-up, I can reclaim the costs of any stratagem I use. Now, interestingly, it says that it's for the Genestealer ones, and some are too. So, it's just the way it's written. It's like it says you can reclaim the cost of a point, but some of them cost 2, so I don't know what to do, because that's the book and the data card, so yeah. Then I brought an Aberrant with a Trap is Sprung, which means if he comes out from underground, he rolls 3d6 and discards the lowest. And he doesn't have any much, he just has Regenerative Flesh, he just has some abilities. And then I have the Biophagus, who has Alchemist Supreme and that Alchemic Familiar, which basically he can give, once per turn, he can permanently give a unit, a core or an aberrant unit within 3 inches, a special buff, and I roll on it. And if it's an aberrant, I get to choose. Now, because I gave him Alchemist Supreme ability, I get to, when I'm creating the list, give a unit of my, an aberrant or core unit of my choice, selection of what ability. So I gave one of my units, this unit, 5-up Feel No Pain. So this giant squad has a 5-up Feel No Pain. Alrighty then. Now that that's out of the way. And now on to troops. These are Acolyte hybrids. They have, from every angle. So they'll be able to leave the battlefield in deep strike on the first turn. They all have hand flamers and one icon and then their leader. And here's a unit of regular neophytes. They just have, they actually have auto guns. And then I have this unit of regular troops. Something happened in the tabletop simulator and gave them a bunch of icons. There's only one icon, but basically they all have shotguns, 2 have flamers, 2 seismic cannons, and 1 leader. And then for the elites, I have a full squad of aberrants, a squad of 10. Half of them have the strong weapon, half of them have the weapon that passes off damage. It's hard to remember because the book is all over the place and the TTS is confusing me and stuff. So, 1 squad of this, 1 squad of Pure Strain Genestealers, which have a 4-up Invuln save. Now for my fast attack, I have a full squad of Ridge Runners. So these guys are very fast, very mobile. I got rid of their flare, so they no longer have the -2 to enemies charging them, but they have 12 inches to all the range of their weapons. So that's I'm going to take that as a trade-off. I think that'll pretty much max it, so they'll be like hiding at max distance against everything. And then I have the Jackals. Now, I upgraded these guys a bit from my last game, so I have a unit of 6 and a unit of 7, essentially. So they have their leader, and then they have the Jackals, and then they have an Atlan Wolf Squad, which has a mining laser. So the Wolf Squads have mining lasers, and the leader and 1 dude has a grenade launcher. So I read more into the Crossfire, and apparently, if 5 shots hit them from a unit, they get Crossfire. Alternatively, if they're hit by 1 weapon that has a damage characteristic that's not 1, it automatically applies it. So these grenade launchers are a D3. If I hit them with the grenade launchers, automatically crossfire. So these guys are basically around to do objectives and to, will give me buffs by applying crossfire to specific units. And that is 2,000 points in the new codex. It is very anemic. With this army, I already know from the beginning I'm not going to kill my opponent. In fact, I don't even know if there's any army that I can table. I just have to be able to play the objectives. You have to play the objectives. So that is my 2,000 points of a Twisted Helix.
Alright, you guys, so for this list, there's no Mortarion, you may have noticed. He was amazing last game, but so I wanted to try the other named character, which is Typhus, and so he's from the Harbinger's Death Company. So I wanted to give that a go. I was reading around on their stuff and in their stratagems and whatever, and with Typhus's abilities, so they really leaned into the Poxwalker thing. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have kind of like a demon-esque kind of vibe going, as you'll probably notice. So starting with Typhus, he is not my warlord. Where is he? No, he's not my warlord. So he has his relic or mastercrafted man reaper. He has his regular abilities, but so he's not my warlord. But he does have, as far as spells go, Putrescent Vitality and Curse of the Leper. So Putrescent Vitality is a blessing. I put it on a friendly infantry unit within 18 inches, and then they have +1 strength and toughness until my next psychic phase. And then Curse of the Leper, I used it last game. I roll 7 dice, and for each one that exceeds the toughness is a mortal wound. Alright, so moving over to the Death Guard Demon Prince, which is my warlord. He has Smite and Plague Wind, which roll 1d6 for each model in that unit, and for every 6, that unit suffers a mortal wound. But if the psychic test was a 9 up, that it's 1 mortal wound per 5 up instead. So it may be interesting, it may be almost nothing. I don't know. So this guy has the Folded Wings, so he's a little speedy. He's got 10 inches, and he's got the Demonic Axe, including the Malefic Talons. And then he has, whatever, has Disgustingly Resilient. He has the Harbinger's Warlord trait Shamble-Rot, as well as the Relic. So Shamble-Rot, at the start of my opponent's movement phase, roll 1d6, subtracting 1 if that enemy unit has the character keyword, and on a 4-up, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, and on a 6, they'll take d3 mortal wounds. So, and that's for each unit that's in contagion range. So what that is depends on the turn. And Infected Remains, once per battle at the end of my movement phase, I select 1 objective marker within 3 inches of him. And while the bearer is on the battlefield, important note, that objective marker has the contagions of Nurgle ability and is considered to have all the same contagion abilities the bearer has. So that includes Shamble-Rot. So not only is it the -1 toughness, it's also Shamble-Rot. So that's an interesting one as well. Moving on into my troops, you will notice just 4 big old squads of Poxwalkers. Again, I figured if this is what the vibe is for Harbingers, I'm just going to kind of lean into it and give it a go. But you'll see right behind them on each side is 2 squads of 5 Plague Marines, both here and here. And these guys are kitted out for combat. So each one has one of the different Death Guard combat weapons. I thought I would give it a go. Mason Axe, the Bubotic Axe, the Space Marine with the Great Plague Cleaver, and the guy with the Flail of Corruption. And so the squads are identical in their loadouts. They're just combat, like close combat. And then moving into the elites, you'll notice right behind them are just 2 plain old Death Shroud champion squads. I don't believe I gave them any relics. No. Oh, actually, looks like I gave the squad on the right Unstable Sickness, which is if any models are destroyed by that attack, so each time that guy swings, if he destroys a model, roll 1d6 on a 4-up, the model's unit suffers a 1 mortal wound and up to a maximum of 3. So every guy he kills, he has a chance to do up to 3 more mortal, well, if he kills 3 guys, that is. And then all the way up at the front, you'll see the Biologist Putrefier. So this guy is interesting to me. He upgrades their blight grenades, which the whole army, well, except the poxwalkers, but everyone has blight grenades, which I thought was interesting. So if they're within 6 inches of him, he gives them a -1 armor pen and a damage of 2. I also gave him foul infusion. And then every core unit within 6 inches of that model, every unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts a mortal wound in addition to any normal damage, as long as they have a melee attack with a plague weapon. So it won't affect like poxwalkers, but the Terminators or the Plague Marines it will. And then he has the thing where each time you roll to determine the number of attacks with this weapon, you can reroll the result, which is one of the contagions or poisons. And then on the other side, I have just a Tallyman. I wanted to give him a go. I thought he might be interesting. Have one on each side. Moving into fast attacks, I have a squad of 3 Chaos Spawns, and I did give them the requisition where they have Disgustingly Resilient, and the additional, I believe it's an additional Toughness. I'll have to look at that, but I did spend the command point on that. And then in the back, I just have 2 Flesh Mower Foated Bloat Drones because mine died last time right from the get-go. So I figure if I have 2, there's more likely a chance I get to see what they do. And of course, right in the back middle is a Plague Burst Crawler, just plain as day, 2 Entropy Cannons, a Heavy Slugger, and a Plague Burst Mortar. I didn't like the random damage or the random shots because it just never worked out for me. So I figured I'll just try one and spend the points on something else that I haven't tried yet. But that is my army, and it is 2,000 points to a T.
Okay, for this we rolled up Overrun. So we have to deal with Control 2, Control 3, or Control More. That's really gonna hurt us. Dang it. Alright, so when coming to setting up terrain with the small pieces we had and stuff, honestly, my main army is basically going to move forward with a few ambushes. So I was like, okay, I need some cover, some small things to protect objectives and to jump from cover to cover to advance up. And that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I had almost no plan. I was like, let me create, because I got a lot of poxwalkers, so I was like, if I create choke points, I guess they can kind of clog those up a little bit. And then, yeah, I'm not really affected by movement debuffs, so the vents will affect him, but they won't bother me. My army is predominantly close combat, except for the Plague Burst Crawler that doesn't need to see them to shoot at them. So I was like, this might be interesting, but there wasn't like a specific plan for me.
Alright, I know I said before that I do not expect to actually kill my enemies, but I could not think of anything else other than kill my enemies. So I took Assassination, No Prisoner, and Engage on all fronts. So I know I'm going to be everywhere. I know that. So no prisoner, so he brought a bunch of poxwalkers, and they're irritating to deal with, but
they're only a single wound.
Yeah, and so like I think it's possible that I could gain something from no prisoners. And Assassination, he has 4 characters, so that's 13 points total. It's possible. I was thinking of going with what I did last game, but like because of your massive amount of poxwalkers, and I would have to basically have some units do nothing. This list is not prepped for that. If I had a bunch of small units going underground, then that would be possible. But I can't do it for this game, so I'm going pure killing.
Yeah, well, what's also interesting is that because the poxwalkers can come back, you might actually get more points from them than the actual original number of guys.
I'm aware of that. That's why I'm going to try to, like, one at a time, one squad at a time.
Single them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I chose a Death Guard specific one, Fleeing Vectors, which basically I get 3 points at the end of each battle round if any enemy units fail to morale test this round, or that battle round that had 1 or more models destroyed by attacks made with plague weapons specifically. Now the poxwalkers don't actually have plague weapons, so it I remember last game I actually barely forced any morale checks, so I don't know, but I know they have stratagems. So anyway, I thought I would give it a go. I also chose engage on all fronts because I do have a lot of poxwalkers, and I'm just gonna, well, except for on the objectives.
A
but
zombie
I'm gonna,
horde is just going to shamble forward.
yeah, essentially. And then assassination because I'm getting the vibe that Genestealer cults use a lot of characters.
Yeah. All right. So for deployment with Genestealer cults, now I went by the most important units. Well, okay, so the Atlan Jackals and the Ridge Runners get a free pre-game move. So I wanted them to be in the most prominent places, and I figured that the one of the bigger threats is that stupid Plague Burst Crawler. I assumed that there was a limited amount of places where he would be. The way the terrain is set up, I have open sight lines everywhere. And so I put the Ridge Runners where I thought they would have the best chance of clapping him in any direction he went. And then I put the Jackals in places where I'm going to get a free move anyway, so they're very flexible in their movement. Then it came down to the characters, which are going to sit in the middle near that objective and do their buffs, do their stuff like that. And then they have a bodyguard unit of the Neophyte Hybrids, essentially, which will move around and do stuff. The next big things that came to my mind was the Neophyte Hybrids, because they're going to be very mobile, so it doesn't matter where I put them. I use them mostly as bait. And then I had the, the ambush markers to place out, to sort of fake them out. But they really don't do that much as far as faking out, at least in this game. So far, the only thing that really did a good fake out was the Neophyte Hybrids. The guys with the flamers and the unit that has a lot of extra banners because of an accident. And so far, yeah, that's pretty much it. I basically took up all the most important positions possible. You have to play pure objective, pure tactics in this. You have no room for anything else. So that's my deployment strategy.
Yeah, so with my deployment strategy, I don't know if I technically had one. I know I wanted the Poxwalkers to be able to move up the table, and I wanted to give room, because they're actually pretty slow, around them for faster things to get around or fly over. So, I set up the Poxwalk, like the one squad here by the Blight, or by the Plague Burst Crawler is a little farther back, so that way other units could be in front of it. So that way they can go and run forward and do stuff while the Poxwalkers make their way to an objective. And then the squads in front of it, the other Poxwalkers will just keep moving forward, whereas the back two will sit on the other objectives. Plague Burst Crawler, just smack dab in the middle, sitting on an objective. I figure that makes the most sense to me. And then their Poxwalkers are all flanked by much faster moving units. Typhus is kind of over here. I don't know if that was a good idea or not, but he has a buff to Poxwalkers, so I thought I would try and keep him near some Poxwalkers. I don't know if that was a good idea or not. I guess we'll find out. But essentially, the name of the game is to run forward as a giant wall of Death Guard and just punch stuff in the face and see what happens. Oh, and my Terminators are in Teleport Strike, so they'll just show up kind of randomly.
Alright, so who wants to go first? Who wants to go second? So for me, if I go first, I'm basically going to get a bunch of free shooting. And so, like, going second means I'm going to get hurt badly. Or the enemy's going to get a lot of extra movement. So, not much extra movement, but they're going to close up the board. So for me, going first...
They're so slow.
Yeah. Going first, basically, is I'll get a lot of the first rounds of shooting. I'll get to do a lot of damage. It's very important for me to go first. Going second means I missed out on opportunity, especially with Genestealer cults. Going first really gets my Deep Strikers in more. I mean, if I go second, my Deep Strikers have a lot more space to move around in, but, like, meh. So, as far as it goes for right now, I really need the first turn, especially well for this game. So, what about you?
Yeah, so I don't know if it necessarily matters so much for me. I know the Death Guard are pretty resilient, but you do have a lot of speedy things, so it would choke up a lot of the movement ways. Not that I would be able to get there even if I went first before you did. But I guess maybe it makes it more problematic down the line. Granted, it might mean that some of my guys could get into combat in the first turn if you move that far up.
Mhm.
They're pretty tough, so they could probably withstand it. So I don't know if it's as important for me as it is for you. Yeah, that's what I would say.
All right, well, let's do it. Please God.
Kaka!
6.
4.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Genestealer turn 1. Go. All right, so that was a pretty big movement phase and command phase. So before even my turn began, I had my Atlas Ridge runners move their 9 inches to the right. I had my other jackals move forward. I was able to be more aggressive knowing that I went first. And so after that happened, I then started with the command phase. So a bunch of things happened. So the Nexus marked the Blighthauler with crossfire marker. That's going to be helpful. He then gave the ability. So the Primus has an ability where he has a 6-inch aura of reroll ones to hit, and he can select one core unit within 9 inches, and they will have reroll ones to wound. And basically what I did was I have to select a unit that's on the battlefield during the command phase. That's the stipulation. So with the Nexus, I can make it appear as if I select one unit, and that unit can be within the distance to receive those abilities. So I chose the Jackal Runners on the left, which I gave them this icon just to mark it. So they are treated as being within 6 inches of the Primus, even though they're on the other side of the map, and they also are able to receive his buff, even though they're more than 9 inches away. And so these guys have reroll ones to hit and wound. That's pretty good. Magus moved forward, the Neophytes moved forward to touch the wall, the Biophagus moved forward, and he used his Biophage ability. So he has a Alchemical Familiar, which once per game allows me to do his special ability at 18 inches instead of 3. So I selected these Aberrants, and I was able to select what their ability was, because with Aberrants I can select. With regular troops, I have to roll, unless it's that special ability I buy before game. So these Aberrants have 5-up Feel No Pains now. And that was pretty much it. The Patriarch ran forward, the Aberrants ran forward, and my Acolyte Hybrids and came in at the end of the movement phase. I didn't show them at that point. But these are from every angle, so they show up within 6 inches of any enemy. And yeah, for the first turn, so that's pretty good. Alright. Alright, so for the Psychic phase, it's actually pretty strong. So the Magus cast a spell to buff my Aberrants and to give them +1 attack until the next Psychic phase. And it went off successfully, and I was out of range of any of his Psychers to stop me. Now, interestingly, this actually can't work because they're beyond the actual range of 18 inches and out of line of sight. However, I have a 1 CP stratagem which allows me to give the blessing to things that are beyond my line of sight and range. So for 1 CP, I was able to successfully buff him. And it goes on afterwards, so you don't have to pay the CP beforehand in case you screw that up. And then once that was done, I had nothing else to do with the Magus. So I went to the Patriarch, and I targeted the Death Guard Demon Prince with a -1 to hit. And some attrition stuff, but that doesn't matter. And it went off on an 11. I gave the Patriarch +1 to cast on Maledictions. That turned to a 12. So I was like, okay, I'll just eat the mortal wounds. Took a D3 mortal wounds, and he's close to death. I gotta check the picture.
He's half alive.
Well, we'll see in a moment. I gotta actually see if that's his right wounds, because this thing. Oh no, he has 7, so he is slightly over half. So he has 4 wounds left. Then he casted Mass Hypnosis onto these Plague Marines in front of him, and he got it off on a 9. Well, he rolled an 8, but because of the item I gave him, which is apparently a Astropath's third eye, gives him a bunch of unique abilities. And so he made it on a 9. My opponent rolled a 9, but he has to beat it, and so it did not be dispelled, and so that unit has -1 attack, and they also fight last. So that's pretty useful. And that was the end of my Psychic phase. Alright, so let's start with the most important. With the Achilles Ridge Runners, I fired at the Plague Burst Crawler. Because of the Nexus, I was able to hit it with a Crossfire marker, which adds +1 to hit. And so with 3d3 mining laser shots at 48-inch range, I did 11 wounds to it. It survived by 1. I had to use a CP to reroll the damage, and then I was able to bring it up to 11. Before that, it was like 7. So I turned a 1 into a 5. And his disgustingly resilient saved him. He would have died if it wasn't for that. And I tried to finish him off with the heavy stubbers, but they did nothing. They couldn't wound him at all. So then, afterwards, I spent 1 CP to have these Achilles Ridge Runners move back. The main goal was to protect them from being charged, and because they have 40-inch range, they pretty much can hit everything in the game, so it's okay for them to be far back there. Then I moved on to my Acolyte Hybrids, who showed up in the middle there. They, through their demo charge, they have 2 of them, they spent 1 to fire at these Plague Champions, the demo charge. The demo charge, I spent 1 CP to make it an auto 6. And guess what? I did only 2 wounds. And when I rolled the, when I did the damage, it was only 2 damage each. He had disgustingly resilient, so he only did 1 damage each. So that was very disappointing. So, we'll see how that goes. And then the big thing was the Acolyte Hybrids. So they each have a hand flamer except the guy with the demo charge. So 14 hand flamers into the giant squad of Poxwalkers that was there. Since there was more than 11, it automatically was a 6. So 14 hand flamers with it was like 86 shots did 28 wounds. It's only strength 3 though, so that's why I only did 28. And he lost it to a man. He had only 6 of Feel No Pains. I completely wiped out the entire squad. He spent a CP to re-roll it to see if he could get one member to survive so he could regrow him. Nope, failed that as well. And then I had the Atlan Jackals on the left, the ones with the re-roll hit and wound, because they only have pistols. They have a 12-inch range, but I gave them 2 grenade launchers and a mining laser, and so they fired at the Plague Marines here and was able to kill off another 2 in total. And so after all that, that was a pretty decent shooting phase. Alright, it would be at the end of the fight phase. I'm going to use a CP. On a 5-up, I regain it. I'm going to do this manually because it's never worked for me when I roll it in there. Yes! I keep the CP. So basically what it is into the shadows at the end of the movement phase for the fight phase. I get to take 1 unit that's more than 6 inches away and put them back in deep strike. The downside is that they can no longer show up within 6 or 8 inches. They now have to deep strike regularly. So these guys are going to peace out. Yep. Alright, so far I do not have engaged on all fronts. I actually pulled back the unit that could have gotten me that, but they're too valuable to lose, so I did not get engaged on all fronts. I did 26 wounds for no prisoners, so we'll see how that goes. Early on, I've got nothing so far, but we'll see how this goes.
Alright, summary. Okay, so essentially everything that could move did move, except the Blight Crawler. The Poxwalkers on the left here had to kind of move to take up the objective. Originally, they were just going to run for it. Well, they ran, but I rolled a 1, so. But yeah, so the Poxwalkers over on the right, though, I rolled a 6 for their run, so they were booking it. Everything else ran, so the Plague Marines over here, the full squad, the Tallyman behind them, all the Poxwalkers, the Plague Champion, or the Plague Marines on the left side, as well as the Biologus Putrefier. So everyone ran. Nobody was slacking or anything. The only ones that didn't run were the Chaos Spawn, Typhus, and the Death Guard Demon Prince. Oh, and the Bloat Drones. But other than that, everything else ran. Alright guys, so the Demon Prince tried to smite his
The Patriarch?
Yeah, Patriarch. And so he failed the first time, and so I command pointed the reroll, and I made it on a 5, and then he tried to dispel it.
Failed, and then I used a command point to re-roll that, and you have to beat it. I rolled a 5. I needed a 6. So Patriarch took a D3, turned out to be 3, and he's alive by 1 wound. He hasn't even gotten into fighting. He's just been killed by psychic spells.
Yeah. Well, the first one was his own psychic spell. And then Typhus, he tried to bless the Poxwalkers, but he dispelled it, and then that was
the Patriarch was able to dispel it from across the map because the item, which is the Unwilling Orb, which allows him to dispel from across the map, gives him 1 extra dispel, and adds +1 to his malediction and witchfires. So
All right, you guys. So for shooting, it was altogether uneventful for the most part. The only thing that could really shoot was a plague burst crawler, so he did. I used disgusting force on his back squad, so I killed the neophyte, and then basically all of his characters had a chance of taking mortal wound. However, the only one that did was his biophagus for whatever reason. And then all the rest, I needed a 4-up and did not work. And then he shot his entropy cannons at the aberrants. He was able to kill one, and his heavy slugger as well did a single damage. So somewhere in there is an aberrant who took 1 damage, the one that survived. But yeah, all in all, it was kind of a minor shooting phase, but nothing in this army really has guns, so that's kind of expected. Alright, so Demon Prince charging the aberrants. He gets an 8, so it goes off, just straight up.
So move it how you like.
Alright. Wait, hold on, give me 1 second, I just gotta make sure of something.
If you're within 3 inches, I can heroically intervene.
Yeah. Start here. So, let me see here. Let me try like this.
This is technically true, you can do that. Alright.
Something like that. Is it still 3.5? Oh yeah, because 3 is right here, isn't it?
Alright.
Alright, so I basically had the 1 charge with the Demon Prince, and so he went in and he swung, and he killed 1, and then he did a wound to 1 of them, and then he died. So,
yeah. There's a little more to it. So they had a 5-up feel no pain and -1 damage. So that really helped a lot. His flat 3 damage turned into 2 damage, and I had 5-up feel no pains because of the biophagus. And so that greatly aided me. And then they swung back, and the guys who had the improvised weapons had AP -1, damage 2, but it could pour into other models. They did 1 wound. Then the 5 guys with their sergeant who had the heavy weapons, which was the heavy power weapons, which is +3 strength, -2 AP, and 3 damage flat, plus 1 extra attack because they received the buff from the Magus on the previous phase. They did a total of 21 attacks and did a total of 24 wounds in total, which with his disgusting resilient turned to 16, which is more than he could survive, and so he died. Alright, so for morale phase, my aberrants lost 2, and so on a 6, yeah, we're frosty. And my neophytes only lost 1 guy, but they are leadership 8, so they're good.
Alright guys, so essentially, I got no points.
Alright, so for this movement phase, this is where everyone comes in. My goodness. So, alright, let's start off with these Genestealers running. Moving forward, getting in front of these Poxwalkers. I wanted to hit the Plague Marines, but their distance was too short, even with the +1 to move from the Twisted Helix. The Adlin Ridge Runners moved up and got the objective, so I just realized this shortly after my first turn, is I didn't have any objectives, so I didn't score any points. So, that was sad. So now the Ridge Runners are parking there. These Atlan Jackals move back towards also the objective, but also to protect and block off the characters on the top right, and they can also like add their special abilities to enemies. And then the other Atlan Jackals move back to camp on the objective and to spread out to stop deep striking. Biophagus moved in and will be giving these neophytes his ability, which I'll roll for once the shooting phase begins. The Aberrants moved up to beat up. The Patriarch moved up. I don't know what those Poxwalkers have, but I'm hoping the Patriarch can handle it. Also, in the Patriarch's command phase, he healed for a D3 with the hypermetabolism stratagem. I did not recover that. The Nexus has only helped me once. And finally, at the very bottom, which you can see us doing for a while, getting in my acolytes that have the hand flamers in, because the game spaces them out so much and it's hard to finagle. There is space for them, but it takes a while to like properly do it, because these guys are brought back and from the Return to the Shadows ability. They no longer can deep strike within 8 or 6 inches anymore. So now they deep strike at regular distances. I mean, they could all fit in, and eventually find out how to make them fit in, but it's a real chore. It's just because, like, there's certain things about TTS that are hard to handle. And then my neophytes come in, finally, and these neophytes have the lying in wait stratagem, which allows them to show up 3 inches away from any unit, but they can't charge. And I'm fine with that. That's fine. Alright. Alright, so the Magus was able to bless the Genestealers, and I was able to spend 1 CP to make the range work, so she was able to give them the buff of +1 attack with her Might from Beyond, and that was all she did. And the Patriarch went and hit the Poxwalkers with Mass Hypnosis, subtracting 1 from their attack's characteristic, and they fight last. And then I hit the Plague Marines with Mind Control, which is -1 to hit, and I didn't roll high enough for the secondary effects to happen. Alright, so started off with... What did I start off with? The Achilles Ridge Runners. They fired their heavy stubbers into the Plague Champions and hit them enough times to give them the Crossfire icon onto them. Then they also fired their... their heavy mining lasers at one of the Photed Bloat drones. Only did 4 wounds to it, sadly. But they did give it a crossfire marker. Then, because of that giant squad of plague poxwalkers in the back had a crossfire, because they were sandwiched between the acolytes on the bottom and the ridge runners, they counted as being exposed, because I could draw a line through the ridge runner that didn't go through the terrain piece that also hit the acolytes. And essentially what happened was I was able to get +1 to wound. So 14 flamers, 84 shots, I did a total of 38 wounds, and I wiped out the entire squad. And then the Atlan Jackals up near the Ridge Runners fired at these Plague Marines up here to give them a cross-out marker, and it worked. No, they fired at the Poxwalkers to give them a cross-out marker. Yeah, the Plague Champions got it from the Ridge Runners. And then my Neophytes that came in within 3-inch Deep Strike used the stratagem Massed Firepower, which is basically you select one target, and unmodified hit rolls of 6 turn into wounds. That did help. I got it worked 4 times. Unfortunately, all my squad had only shotguns, so only half of my squad could actually shoot. The sad thing, so I wasn't able to get the most out of it, but I mostly wiped out the squad. There's 1 Plague Champion with 1 wound left. And that was it for my shooting phase. Alright, recording. Alright, so we'll do this live. Alright, so let's start off with the big stuff. Aberrants into this squad, this Biologist Purifier, and these Poxwalkers. I need... Okay, I got 5 inches, because they're stuck in here, so... Yes. So we're knocking that out, so... Surprisingly, these guys have done pretty well. Alright. Then I have the Patriarch charging these Poxwalkers.
Are the Aberrants also in combat with the Poxwalker?
Yeah. I charged all of them. So there's one guy there. You never know. And then he will be right here, gaining buffs. And then over to here, this guy is going to charge this guy. He needs an 8. Makes it exactly. Boom. And then over here, they will have to charge these guys. So the Pure Strength Genestealers can advance in charge, naturally. So they will hit these Poxwalkers on a 6. So they manage to hit it. On a victory. Successful charges. Alright. Dang, that was long. What happened? Alright. So first, the Patriarch, because it has always fight first, swung, killed a grand total of 6 Poxwalkers. Just obliterated them. Absolutely. Then the Genestealers were able to go as the first unit to go, and they just obliterated that unit of 18 Poxwalkers to the man. And then my opponent decided not to go, so my Aberrants swung, and they completely obliterated the 2 guys there and the character there, and killed 3 Poxwalkers with the 2 guys with improvised weapons. And then finally, and then my Abominant swung on the what are those things called? Plague Spear?
Plague Burst Crawler.
Yeah, Plague Burst Crawler. He successfully destroyed it. He only had 3 attacks. Only 1 went through, and I have a feeling if he had any more wounds, that thing would have survived. But he successfully killed it and moved towards the objective, towards the nearest enemy, but that also brought him closer to the objective. And then his Poxwalkers attacked, and he spent a bunch of CP, and then because my Patriarch was my Patriarch only took mortal wounds. That's the only thing he took.
Got him.
If it was from saves, he would have lived, because he could have passed on any failed saves to nearby people, but he took only mortal wounds this game, and he died because made it so that 6s to hit automatically do a mortal wound, so GW, patch that.
Alright, so basically on a 4-up, he dies. He dies.
Victory.
Champion!
Alright, so I got none of my primaries because I completely forgot about them in the first round, so I didn't get any. But I got 2 assassination points for killing the Demon Prince character, so that's 4, and then 3 for killing that, I don't know who it was, Scrub. He died instantly. Now I have engaged on all fronts, the maximum, because I'm in every single corner. So far, I'm actually killing my opponent. I thought I'd be slapping a wall, so...
Alright, you guys, so essentially I had to kind of address some of the things going on around the board.
Your impending defeat?
Well, we'll see. My Terminators finally came in. So my floated bloat drones turned kind of back around, 1 on the Aberrant, or the Abominant, whatever he is, Abominant, and then 1 on this squad of Neophytes. Typhus turned around. My Tallyman and Chaos Spawns kind of moved towards the Genestealers. The Poxwalker stayed in. And then my Death Shroud Terminators came in to kind of start moving towards some of the back objectives on his side. And then that was it. Command phase, nothing really happened except Tallyman got me an extra command point. Alright, so basically the only caster I have left is Typhus. He tried to do Curse of the Leper on the Neophytes down below, but he failed miserably. I command pointed it, and he failed again. And then I tried to smite some guys, and it did, and I did 2 mortal wounds. So that was it. Alright guys, so I didn't have a lot of shooting. The Tallyman shot at the Genestealers, but he rolled a 1 to wound, and so he just failed at life. Typhus used a Blight Grenade, knocked off 2 of these Acolyte Hybrids, and then these Terminators shot at his Neophyte Hybrids up here. They were able to kill 4 of them. And then these Terminators shot at these guys, the Jackals here, and they were able to do 1 wound.
Go.
Alright guys, well essentially everything got into combat except for 1 of my Death Shroud Terminator squads against his Jackals on the objective, but that's okay. Typhus charged, he got overwatched, he only took 1 wound from that.
He took 13 wounds, and then he made a bunch of saves. That's what happened.
Well, yeah, so he only took 1. But anyway, so everything got in though. So we'll see what this board looks like after this round. Alright you guys, so a lot happened, but yet at the same time, not a lot happened. So the Chaos Spawn and the Tallyman swung on the Genestealers. I think they killed 4 Genestealers, maybe.
Total, yeah.
And then Typhus swung, so he interrupted at that point with his Acolytes down here. They did 1 damage to Typhus. Typhus only killed 3 of them, though. He's feeling kind of lazy. And then we basically just started rolling around. So then this bloat drone swung. He killed 4 of these Neophyte Hybrids. And then this bloat drone, the one at full wounds, killed his Aberrant,
yeah.
or Abominant.
Yeah, Abominant.
Yeah. And then the Terminators up here, the Death Shroud Terminators, swung and they wiped the squad, and so they not conspired. Consolidated into the Nexus, who swung and didn't do anything at some point. And then the Poxwalkers I double stratagemed them with Mutant Strain and Wrathful Dead, and they did 6 mortal wounds, killing 2 aberrants, bringing 2 Poxwalkers back, because he also killed like 4 of them. So, but yeah, so a lot kind of happened, but yeah.
And then my swing's back. I did one against
yeah.
Typhus, or actually no, did I do any more to Typhus? One more to Typhus.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything to the Foetid Bloat Drone. My Abominants killed a few, but they got killed back. My Genestealers killed his Tallyman and did 2 wounds to his Chaos Spawn. And the Nexos, who swung against the Death Shroud Terminators, who consolidated him, he did literally nothing. So, yeah.
Yep.
Alright, morale phase is hard, so we're going to go big. First, I'm going to spend 2 CP for these Acolyte Hybrids to not have to do it. So, they're frosty. Then the Genestealers on a 5. If they roll a 5, I'm screwed. 5 plus 4 is 9. That's the leadership, so I lose 1. And then
You need to roll 5 dice.
yeah, 1
So
more.
1.
Because they're at exactly half, so that was painful. Alright. Then, over to here. I need to roll a 4 and under.
Nice.
Crap. I lose 1 guy. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, 15 guys. Ouch. 1 more.
What the heck?
Yeah. Alright. Then over here, I don't even want to say it out loud. I'll say it after I roll.
You need a 5. Got it.
Whatever. Okay. And these guys are now under half, so...
Ooh, that was rough. Alright, you guys, so for this round I got 0 primaries. However, I did get 3 for fleeing vectors, which is nice. I got the full 3 for engaged in all fronts, and I got another 3 for assassination.
And likewise, I picked up another 3 for my assassination.
Oh yeah, because you killed the Tallyman.
Yeah.
So in a war of secondaries, it's tied. Eventually, someone will get some primary. Oh, it'll actually DB, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so a lot of hard things had to be decided upon. So the Nexos, in the command phase, left... well, not in the command phase, but he left his combat. The Primus gave his abilities to the Neophyte Hybrid Squad up here. All the Neophytes and the Acolytes with their icons, everyone has it, regenerated. So my Neophyte squads are back at their full 20. My Acolytes gained 3 more guys. So they're not at full, but they're a little close. And so my Neophytes up top surrounded the Death Shrouds. They've received a bunch of buffs. My Pure Strain are just sticking in. I decided I move my Atlan Wolf squad nearby, pull back. They're still within range of that. I'm going to hope for some miracle. The Biophagus is going to do something to try to buff them. We'll see what happens out of that. And, yeah, tough decisions. Alright, a lot of big brain plays. So I started off at the bottom against Typhus. So all these flamers that the squad has are pistol flamers. They're strength 3, but they're still pistol flamers. And so they all shot at him, 11. And I managed to do... I actually killed him. Then he used his reroll to reroll 1 armor save, and Typhus survived with 1 wound. So, went better than expected. Then to the top, I had to use some big brain thinking. So I had the Ridge Runners, the Achilles Ridge Runners, split their fire. The Heavy Stubbers would fire at the Death Guard Terminators near the Neophytes to try to proc crossfire on them. And then the rest of their mining lasers would fire at the ones on across the screen. And they actually did manage to successfully proc by 1 shot the Death Shroud Terminators. And then they were able to kill 1 Death Shroud Terminator across the screen with their mining lasers. And then finally, The neophytes, with the enemy with having crossfire, they had reroll 1 to hit and reroll 1 to wound, and they had exposed because I could draw a line through the guys, through the ridge runners. Successfully managed to do 5 wounds to the Terminators. I had like 40 shots, successfully did with +1 to hit, +1 to wound, reroll 1s to hit and wound, did 5 wounds to the Terminators, finished them off. So, very close, very tough. Alright, so there was no charges, so I started off as my turn. So, first I started with what was the most important. The Genestealers, I believed, were most important to go. So they swung and they managed to do 4 wounds. So they killed 1 more Chaos Spawn and did 2 wounds. Then Typhus went and just obliterated that squad, and there was only 2 left. Then I swung next with my Aberrants, and I killed like 2 guys. Or no,
like
3 guys, yeah. I killed 3 Poxwalkers, and then I went over and then I had my, what was it? All my guys that surrounded the fetid bloat drone swing, because that wasn't a safe combat yet, and they did absolutely nothing. Oh no, they did 1 wound. And the Foetid bloat drone swung back and successfully gained 4 wounds from it, from all the kills. Or no, 3 wounds from it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, that was pretty terrible. And then, shoot, his Chaos Spawn swung back on my Pure Strain, and I saved all of them, so he did nothing to me.
Yeah, they did nothing.
And then out of the left corner, no one saw coming, the last 2 Acolytes, 2 attacks each. Their weapon gives them +1 attack, brings them to 3. Hitting on 3s at -2, they successfully did 3 wounds at -2, and Typhus failed 1, and he died. Wow, did not see that coming. Alright, so I got some morales to take. So over here, these guys, I need a 3 and under. And I make it. They're frosty. Good. And then my last unit, I need a 1. Psychically sending this message. 1. No. Alright, 1 guy runs, and then on a 1 or a 2, the squad is dead. Oh my god.
Nice.
That is a... I don't know, it's a mixed, but they killed Typhus. It's hard to complain. Alright, so this round really swung in my favor. I finally got the points. Since he had none, I got the control more. So I had control 2, control 3, and I controlled more, so I got full 15 for points. Then I killed his last character, and I have full points for engagement all fronts again. It's going really well for me. Alright, we'll see how this goes. Alright, so we decided to call it. My Death Guard opponent conceded. And we're going on to LVP and VP. So, surprisingly, it's a very close game because Genestealer Cult is like a Swiss watch. Everyone is doing something. There's no wasted units. Like, everyone is working together. It's all teamwork. It's really intense. And, like, you have to be big brain to use this. Yeah, even your shooting phase has to be incredibly planned. Who goes first and stuff, and the targets. So, I do have an MVP, but I have a runner-up. So, runner-up is the Ridge Runners. They did so much work. They basically crippled his, the Blight Hauler thing, and then they were able to place crossfire markers on most of my enemy opponents, and they did tons of damage. They killed some of the Terminators. They applied their crossfire markers, which greatly helped my bonuses, allowed me to do tons of damage because of that with my other units. So the only reason that they are not MVP is because the Acolytes, the ones with the hand flamers, absolute MVPs. Deep Strike, turn 1, wiped out 20 Poxwalkers and then left. Turn 2, Deep Strike, killed 20 Poxwalkers and left. It's like, oh no, they didn't leave. I kept them because I completely forgot I could take them out. And then they killed Typhus in combat and in the shooting phase because their flamers were pistols, so they did a crap ton of wounds to him. It's like absolute MVPs. They did so well. As like they're totally worth the 12 points a model. It's 9 points, but the flamers add 3, and giving them a demo charge and all that stuff. They did incredibly well. Their icon really saved them in the end, allowed them to have enough models to survive and kill Typhus. And then LVP. So it's kind of so everyone did something. Everyone was valuable. Everyone fought. However, it comes down to some people just really got screwed. So the runner-up is the Patriarch, who died due to mortal wounds. Due to 3 he did to himself because of Perils of the Warp, and all the mortal wounds he took, he would, if it wasn't for those mortal wounds, he would have survived, because he would have passed on a 3-up. Every save that he failed, he could have passed on to the Aberrants, and it would have been fine. But nope. That absolutely sucks. So the owner, he did really well though with buffs and debuffs, and the only reason he's not the LVP is because someone sucked harder, and that was the Neophytes, the ones that deep strike 3 inches. They showed up, killed they did 4 wounds, or no, they killed 4 Marines, and then they didn't do anything else. They got hit by the Flesh Mower. They had a 5-up Feel No Pain, so they basically held it off, but their contribution to the game was very small. The Flesh Mower really screwed them over. If they could leave, they would have been fine, but I mean, the Aberrant pretty much showed up and died, but like that was because I made a bad choice, not because they just didn't perform. A close game. So who was your MVP, LVP?
Well, my MVP was one Poxwalker squad that survived. They were able to kill your Patriarch.
Yeah.
They killed almost all of the Aberrants.
Yeah, they got like 5 of them. Goodness.
Yeah, just with the mortal wound strategy. Now, granted, it started bleeding my command points, but I wasn't spending them anywhere else anyway. And my LVP, other than the entirety of the army for the most part, was the Death Guard Demon Prince. Decided to run him out, do some damage, overestimated his abilities, and he just took it straight to the face, turn 1. So he kind of...
Yeah, he flew in,
great.
Charged Aberrants, killed 1 guy, died.
Yep. So not so great for him. So he would be the worst of the worst.
And overall, my second game with Genestealer Cults, the Twisted Helix, the Transhuman, actually did come up. It actually ended up killing Typhus because he did so many wounds to them that there were 4 twos, which saved them, because otherwise that squad would have wiped out and he would have lived, and I wouldn't have gotten my assassination points there. So that really did come into play, and
it came into play a couple of times too.
Yeah, that +1 to move also really helped with the Genestealers getting closer and my Aberrants moving out and repositioning my troops when needed. So Twisted Helix is actually pretty useful. It does counter the Death Guard because you have that that minus their toughness thing. Yeah. And so this would protect them against that, but it also applies to vehicles. This is a pretty useful ability. Granted, I don't have my reroll charge that the 4-armed Emperor have. The 4-armed Emperor has some pretty good stuff, but Twisted Helix was really good for a mobile, rapid deploying army that just runs up. Good mobility and good toughness. Honestly, there's little else to change, I guess. There's tons of things to explore in the book, but I think I will be swapping armies next time because of Battle Scribe, TTS, and all that stuff. It takes me like an hour to make a list because of I have to ignore all the things that are wrong. So for the sake of time, I will be swapping to a different army next time. Just a practicality. But overall, this army... honestly, this army killed a lot. I was actually surprised. I find that the Neophytes actually do good work. They're just mass firepower with all their buffs. Really does good damage. And you really have to play the objective with this army. Even though, I focused on just slaughtering and killing, I used a lot of tricks to slaughter and kill. If it wasn't for my MVP Acolytes with the Flamers, I probably would have lost this. Because those stupid Poxwalkers... If those would have gotten in at full, it would have just completely deleted most of my units.
Yep.
So what have you...
I, believe it or not, I actually liked the majority of this list. The Chaos Spawn, they're 20 points a model.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
Right, so it was actually really cheap. They didn't do a whole lot. Granted, they survived though.
Yeah.
The whole game, so that's probably something to be said. Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know, those Death Shroud Terminators are just mean. The bloat drones, they're good. I might run them more closely together though. and see if that might help. I don't know. I did like the list though. I think I just got some bad luck on the draw here, but that's okay.
If you would have dropped the Demon Prince and added another Blight Spewer or whatever that thing
Yeah,
is.
I don't actually care so much for the Plague Burst Crawlers. I did like the Demon Prince. I think I mismatched him though.
I hit him with some debuffs, so like that's a one. So my Patriarch, I brought him as a Psyker and not a close combat guy, and so he was just slinging out spells easily cast, and he just weakened everybody.
Yeah, so I think he was just mismatched. I think he does well against troops or even elites, honestly, because his axe is a flat 3 damage. So it's probably just a little bit of unfamiliarity with the army. I'd actually say I like the list. I don't know how I feel about their psychic powers, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think part. I just got to figure out a couple of their mechanics a little better. But it was actually okay because it was a really back game.
Yeah, like at first, the first half. Yeah, that first half.
Yeah, well, because once Typhus died, it was like, okay, so the 2 Flesh Mowers could have probably cleared that squad, and then they could have sat on these back objectives, and then these Poxwalkers would have killed those Aberrants probably within the next turn, and killed that, and held this one. So then it would have been a game of us sitting on objectives, but you were already ahead by too many points for me to really. I mean, this one Terminator could have eventually in 2 turns, so the end of the game gotten to that objective maybe, and then these Chaos Spawn were I don't know if they're ever gonna kill those last 4 Genestealers.
Well, honestly, it was really close. It was like borderline. It's like tipping the scales. The first half, I was destroying you, and then the Terminators came in, and then those brick walls. But honestly,
those Death Shroud are mean.
They are mean, but I was able to neuter them essentially. Like, luckily you didn't make the charge here with these Atlan Jackals, so that actually saved me. You failed that. Honestly, like
that whole squad probably would have taken it.
Yeah, and you completely wiped out these Atlan Jackals, and so then like these neophytes finishing them off. But it was really these Ridge Runners. They were like doing so much work, and it's like I had to play the objectives. I had to keep focusing on it, but it was a close, tough game. The Patriarch had god-awful luck. He would have done much better. So absolutely bad. It is hard to say, but my goodness, it was close.
Yeah, I think all in all, I did like my list. I think I probably played it wrong, and I might have swapped 1 or 2 things out. I don't know if. Granted, the Plague Marines never got into combat, so if they had gotten into combat, they probably would have done some pretty good damage.
They would have. That's why I was just like...
But, I mean, something's got to die every turn, so...
I'm honestly surprised that I was able to kill as much as I did. Like, my goodness.
Yeah.
Alright then. That seems to be our notes. Genestealer Cult is a lot more interesting, and they actually can hit hard. You just have to... You actually have to have tons of metagame knowledge, perfectly match your troops, perfectly strategize, and synergize your entire army. So this is like... I feel like my head hurts from thinking so hard, because you would have to play this army a lot in order to get good at it. Because at a tournament, you would have to like know all their strategies and movements, like breathing. You would not be able to just like go to a tournament with just a few games under your belt. You would lose. Well, yeah. Overall, it was fun. All right. GG's.